Hey, Justin. Good afternoon.
Hey Ram, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. How you been?
I've been battling a little bit of a virus, so I'm finally feeling better. It forced me to do what you choose voluntarily to do, which is abstain from eating food for a few
Oh,
days.
oh wow, that's cool. You don't have an appetite, probably.
Yeah, I didn't. I finally had sort of an appetite last night slash today, but not a normal one. But for 3 solid days, I had like no.
It's such an easy way to get started fasting when you're sick because you just don't want to eat. You just roll with it. Maybe have some chicken noodle soup, and then you
Yeah,
get better. I
I'm still
started.
not a
Good.
I'm still not a fan of fasting though on a personal level.
Yeah. Look, many people say the same about like exercise and getting up early. like
Exactly.
but what it's psychology. It's all psychology, right? I wasn't a fan for 41 years. I'm still not a fan. I'm not a fan of fasting.
Yeah.
I'm
All
a
right.
fan of
Fair enough.
fasting
Fair enough.
intellectually.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But I did it, I guess. So it was interesting.
So let's get into it. We got a lot of topics to get through here.
We do. Big week. And we did not chat last week.
Did not chat last week. So where do you want to start?
Well, I would say, given what we've been talking about for a really long time, Nvidia is a really great place to start. We've been all over semiconductors and the rise of AI. I still don't know if anyone, and you've had a pulse on the market, could have anticipated that, what was it, yesterday, Nvidia gained more in a single day than any other stock ever has in the history of the stock market.
A
A
lot of
quarter
records.
of $1 billion, right?
A lot of records being made
A
in the
quarter of
stock.
a trillion. Sorry,
Yeah.
like a quarter of $1 trillion.
Nvidia gained another Nvidia. Actually, if you mark time, if you look at like Nvidia where it was in October 2022, at that market cap, Nvidia gained an Nvidia at that point in time. Also, was Nvidia that dramatically different a business between now and then? Now, certainly from a sales perspective, it was right. But and you had a Meta, which had a record gain when they announced earnings up 20%, greatest gain that we've ever seen in market
Until
history.
Nvidia.
And from a market cap gain perspective, yes. From a percent change perspective, Meta holds that title. We own both, which is great.
Yeah.
So, I don't think anyone can really predict how these things go. I saw an interesting take, which I like around NVIDIA. So first off, there's the secular thesis, and we'll get back to that in a second. The second is the tactical. So what happened is leading up to earnings, you had January, NVIDIA ramp up 40, 45%. That's one. So people were anticipating the growth. Maybe there's leaking of the growth because people can read into the supply chain. They anticipated that. And so leading up to the date of earnings, NVIDIA was pulling back like 6%. And interesting take I saw was that in the prior 2 quarters, NVIDIA had essentially gone nowhere after earnings, even though they did a beat raise. And so the market was pulling forward that expectation. And so people were caught off sides. So they had the beat raise, but the pull forward was done. And so it lifted off. I thought that was a really interesting tactical perspective. From the secular perspective, it's quite interesting. First off, the NVIDIA calls are, people show them at least once because they're very different than any other earnings calls. So these NVIDIA calls start with a survey of the ecosystem, not even about NVIDIA. They say, here's what we saw Microsoft do. Here's what we see happening with countries. And here's what we see these companies doing. They're talking about the planet. They're talking about the planet.
Through the lens of AI or
Through the lens of accelerated compute, which is their framing of AI. They're saying, hey, look, there's old compute, and now there's accelerated compute, and NVIDIA's at the center of that. And it is about AI is the key theme there too. But it is a really unusual earnings call. Usually the second sentence is after, hey, thank you for joining us, is our revenues are X, our guidance is that. It starts very high level about the world. And if you listen to Jensen, his talk is very grandiose. I don't want to say hyperbole, like Sam Altman is hyperbole. Sam Altman is like, I need $7 trillion to go build an AGI machine in the desert. Jensen actually called him out on that. He was like,
yeah, that's kind of a laugh.
I don't think we really need the 7 trillion, right? So, but yeah, look, they beat, and they they beat by 2 billion in revenue, not a small number. And they keep doing that. The wild thing is that it may be the case, we'll find out in a few days, that the forward PE of Nvidia is once again cheaper than Apple, which I find hilarious.
Wild.
The earnings is keeping up in lockstep with the price growth, right?
Yeah.
So this is the thing people can't get their heads around.
It is hard to fathom the growth of their earnings. It really is. It's pretty incredible. One question I have for you, we haven't talked a lot about this, but I've been thinking a little bit about it relative to AI and Nvidia and the future of compute, which is, as we put more demands on artificial intelligence, there's been some discussion that I've seen around moving the capacity of compute locally and increasing that. What have you looked at that? Are there players that we should be looking at and thinking about that are ahead? Is that already something Nvidia is thinking about in terms of like how they're going to integrate with, I don't know, other types of hardware devices?
Yeah, so there's a few different threads there. So one is, you can run an LLM on your laptop or a machine. There's high performance computing machines. But here's the thing. It's the training of the LLMs that require a lot of compute. The inference doesn't require a lot of compute unless you want speed, and everyone wants speed for convenience. So there's some practical considerations there, right? But like Meta created an LLM. It's called Llama. And an LLM is a function with a set of weights that take inputs and crank out outputs. So you can copy paste that LLM. You can run it locally, and you can train it on what you want to do. So it raised another question: what's the value of ChatGPT, these other foundational LLMs, when Meta has one open sourced, and you do not have to run training costs on it, which costs a lot of money? The hard part is creating the LLM, getting those function weights. So that's one. But more direct way to answer your question is yes. That's exactly what Apple's focused on, right? Apple's saying, gee, how do we run a local version of LLM on the phone?
Right. Well, the other thing that I think is also interesting that I've been thinking about and discussing with some folks is the small language models. So as opposed to large language models that do pretty much everything decently well, although there's some hallucinations in the machines.
Yeah.
What about the future of small language models that are much more narrowly focused and tighter in terms of their training?
That's where the opportunity is. I mean, the large language models, I would argue, have failed to deliver a meaningful use case other than coding. And coding is a great use case. A lot of coders out there. You go from being a 1x engineer to a 7x, 8x engineer overnight, but it's a narrow sliver. So the promise of AI hasn't been delivered at the application layer. We're just met with disappointment. I think, the .com era, we had email and the browser. Those were two killer apps. Those are legitimate killer apps that transform every day how we communicate, send information, browse, interact, share our brands, engage with customers. The chat room was created, the instant messenger was created, and obviously there was a bust, and then it came back again with the Web 2, right? But in AI, we have summary and we have generation. And the generation hallucinates. The summary is not bad, for taking notes, right? But we don't have that killer use case yet. So on the micro LLMs, I agree, that's the opportunity. And that's what's working, by the way, right? There are startups that have the micro LLMs for different scenarios, from video editing to Fathom, which we use to take notes and transcribe. That works. So I agree. I think the micro LLMs have greater potential in the near term. Those verticalized, specialized LLMs.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting to think about the ecosystem that has to develop for these types of applications. And the infrastructure that's necessary for it to continue to grow. Because obviously some of that is technological, but some of that is also standards, whether those are guardrails or ethics, however you want to think about it. User access controls, if you're putting in an AI system and training it on your company data, does everybody in the company have access to that AI unfettered, which may be reading CEO's emails, which may be reading all of the HR files, which may be reading every employment contract? All those things I think are going to be really interesting, because you sure as heck know that somebody, bad actor outside or internal, just curious actor, is going to say, well, how much does so-and-so make?
Right. I think that's why we're waiting for Google to roll out their transformation of Gmail and the overall workspaces with AI. It takes time to solve all those hard problems. Those safety constraints you mentioned, though, that's what's screwing up AI. AI was great when it first rolled out. GPT-4 was great, like in February and March, before it had all the safety constraints. If you look at the white paper, by the way, I went through the Meta Llama white paper. They've open sourced AI, which is a gift to humanity, by the way. We don't know the ChatGPT framework. We know that for Meta. They've shared exactly what data sets, the training function, the safety guardrails, the whole thing. And they actually show that there's a trade-off between helpfulness and safety in the AI. And you see this with Google. I've asked Google questions around the best way to delta hedge this kind of risk with this kind of option. And it's like, sorry, I cannot give you. I'm like, come on, dude. What are you doing?
I've been getting that answer more than I've ever gotten it before. Sorry, I can't help you with that request.
Exactly.
I was like,
what? I need a jailbroken Google. And there's a screen or tweet somewhere I saw where they show the safety prompt that OpenAI loads ahead of the user's prompt now. You don't see it. It's just there in the background, the same way when you configure your GPT.
Mm-hmm.
That's like 2 pages long of this like text. You probably want to delete most of it, if not all of it. And it just adds that burden on the system when it's trying to solve your question. And that is partially, in addition to the safety, in addition to saying, no, I can help you, it has this other constraint, and that has caused Google a lot of issues and headache this week.
It has. Yeah, tell me a little bit about the Google criticism, because when we were chatting back and forth about some topics to discuss, I wasn't as aware of this.
Put this on screen. It's funny / sad. I don't know how you want to look at it, but it's like Google created woke AI, I guess. So now look, I'm gonna share the bear case and the bull case in a second. I want to be faithful to both sides here. All right. Yeah. Is that sharing?
It is sharing.
So here you go.
The New York Post is going to be all over woke.
Right.
They've got their own bend.
We'll do bear case first. Look, it just popped up. So they paused the AI image generator. So someone asked, like, show me a picture of the founding fathers. And, there's like no white people here, right? So, well, I guess this is a depiction from. Yeah. So the point is, there are a number of images like this. Yeah, exactly. So Google admitted its image tool was missing the mark. I mean, yeah. So like, it's not just this. It's like many prompts that are producing that kind of result, and it's the these safety constraints on the model. Now, fortunately, they can fix those. It'll take time, but they just got pilloried on Twitter for that. I mean,
it raises an interesting point, though, about data in, data out, right? Like the traditional idea of, well, a system is only as good, the outputs of a system are only as good as the inputs. And our AI training is getting trained on the output as a society that we've put out there, right? So some of that is biased, we know, right? Like historic bias, current bias, whatever you want to say. And so
there's always some bias somewhere, right?
Right, definitionally. And that has led AI to produce responses that would be viewed as sexist or racist, you name it. I think that the reason maybe we're seeing woke now is possibly the result that they're just like updating the system in the last couple of years with more training. And like, as a society, we've had a little bit of an ebb and a flow. And so there's maybe more output in the last few years that discusses woke topics.
When they train a model, they can oversample content, and they are deliberate about doing that. And they can also direct the LLM the same way. Like when Google was training their driverless car, Google has a facility where they simulate hazards. Someone walking from the car, there's a bus, surprises. So they can oversample those issues to learn and train, and they'll figure it out. But it's this stuff is hard. It's not easy. Like, what is the appropriate prompt? Don't be racist, but be accurate. What the hell does that mean? Like, what do you?
Right, it's hard. I'm just saying, like, if you were to ask for AI to draw a picture of a president, based on the number of presidents we've had in this country that are white men versus black men versus anything else. We've literally never had anything else as a president in this country. It's odds are it's not going to draw a woman. Does that mean a woman can't be president? Of course not. It just hasn't happened yet. And so therefore the AI may interpret that as that's not what a president looks like.
Right. And I'm not saying that it's not it's a hard issue. Like, there's no anyone involved in the Google ethics department and Google model training, like, they all need to be like philosophy students or something. There's no way to answer these questions. It's just dials on a knob, and there are many knobs, and they all trade off. There's no optimal solution. One cuts one way, the other one cuts another way. You want accuracy? Here's what you're going to get. Well, accuracy is history, and history isn't perfect. You want progress? Might be a different thing, but that might not be, the future of where someone wants to go. And then whose values you're trying to represent also. So this is like an impossible to win situation. It's the same thing in social media in general. Same reason why all these big tech CEOs get hauled up in front of Congress and they're punching back. This is the no-win situation, even though I would submit that folks like Meta are doing a good faith effort. And they have tens of thousands of employees trying to screen for content. They do a much better job than TikTok, for sure. But it's a complex issue. It's not as easy as e-commerce, buy, sell, click.
True. How about the sovereign nature of AIs, right? Like,
so this was really interesting.
Kind of like blends into
so this is coming into the zeitgeist now. It started a few weeks ago with Sam Altman and Jensen out in Dubai. Essentially, what I saw is them pitching these ultra wealthy dynasties about, hey, let's go fund an AI in your backyard. It wasn't actually that, but that's the meta take, I think. Now, we wrote about this or discussed it in the last summer. We called it government AI, but the vocabulary that's taken shape here, taken hold, is called sovereign AI. The basic idea is that governments want AI, number one. They want AI for national security, perhaps surveillance, other use cases as well. 2. 3, they don't trust Google, Microsoft, or Amazon to host their AI on U.S. soil with U.S. law, which makes a lot of sense. So 4, Nvidia is the beneficiary of that. And there are a few other players that are beneficiaries of that. But that is now in the zeitgeist now. It's pretty powerful, right? Like, I think until people start thinking of AI in terms of defense spending, we have a ways to go. And it should be, right? I mean, we should properly think about AI CapEx at the sovereign level as some material component of defense spending.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, it is a critical national security component.
Exactly. And, we saw this contract award from the US government to Global Foundries, which is a competitor of Taiwan Semiconductor. It was jointly awarded to Lockheed Martin, which is a defense contractor, multi-billion-dollar, multi-year contract. Want to learn more about that. But yeah, these two pieces go hand in hand. That before we even get into like hive warfare and all the stuff we read about in Ender's Game and everything else. But yeah, sovereign AI, that was the big theme that emerged, I'd say, in the zeitgeist over the last few months. Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
No worries. No worries. So I'm going to lay out this topic on biotech till Justin joins us back. I don't talk enough about biotech. Biotech is one of the themes we're super excited about from a secular growth trend, longevity and wellness trend, and actually an investment trend. So here's the story with biotech. Biotech stocks about 3 months ago had 10-year low valuations. So they were dirt cheap. And they've run up in the last 3 months quite a bit, 30% if you're looking at like an index plus or minus at the name level, anywhere from 10% to like 80% or more. So biotech's had an incredible run coming off these 10-year low valuations. In fact, biotech as a sector was so beat up that these assets were trading below net cash assets. I mean, if you look at a company, you could hand someone more cash than they used to purchase a stock. Now, granted, these companies had negative cash flow too, but that's how cheap biotech was in around October of last year. Justin, you're back?
So I don't think I saw your screen if you were trying to share screen.
No, I wasn't trying to share.
Okay, just making sure.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been an incredible run. And when you think, what do you encompass in that?
So here are the different buckets in biotech. So in the past, the story around biotech is always around molecules. So what are molecules? Molecules are treatments like Lipitor, different kind of pharmaceutical drugs that we take. They're a molecule, right? So what's happening now in this next generation of biotech is a few things have happened. One is not only did we decode the genome, which we did in 2001, 2002, et cetera, with Craig Venter, but didn't go anywhere because there's no application value. It took another 15, 20 years, right? Now we're getting application value on what are called these new modalities. So one modality is called molecules, but there's another modality called like antibodies, the new vector that we have in biotechnology, or protein drugs, based drugs like mRNA, which Moderna produced, right? So these are new, and just therapeutics as well is another category. So you have this increase in the number of different vectors beyond just this narrow thing called the molecule. Okay. The other part is these big pharma companies are having a big chunk of their IP expiring the back half of this decade because they're going generic. So they need to acquire these biotechs to replenish their IP. And so M&A is picking up. M&A is bullish, right? And to put the cherry on top, we've already seen the success of the GLPs, the weight loss drugs. Now people are going to say, well, what's the next winner? That's the success of biotechnology and research. People are going to look beyond the hood and say, how do I find the next one? And they're going to look to biotech. So that's where we are focused, spending time. We've got like 25, 30 names there because biotechs are like lottery tickets. They're either worth zero or they're worth a couple $1 billion and they're all over the place. So you got to be diversified there.
Yeah, the GLP-1s and their dramatic impact on society has certainly raised awareness of the asset class as something that can't be missed, and you don't know when the next one is going to come.
Yeah, exactly. They're out there though. There's a lot happening. Med tech as well. Gene therapy is coming online. There's a lot coming online around biotech in the next several years, and these are also story stocks. So when Animal Spirits gets excited, you can see people take a lot of interest in these. We're also seeing more focus on less covered diseases. Like historically, big pharma focuses on where this commercial application, a large enough market, even if it's a narrow slice, but enough market there. But now, you can use AI to accelerate drug discovery. There's a stock called Schrodinger. I don't own it. I'm not saying go buy it. In fact, I don't think there are better opportunities where they'll work with a biotech or pharma company and say, hey, look, we'll come up with the protein, the molecule, and we'll split the revenue 50-50. You don't have to pay us anything. So, that's an interesting application of AI.
Interesting business model there.
It's really interesting. Sharing the upside, and they'll help incubate the molecule. So really exciting. One stock that we own is called Rocket Pharmaceuticals, RCKT. I'm only sharing that because we're not buying it anymore. So that's why. If you guys don't buy it, go for it. I'm not saying it's a good entry now or not either, by the way. I know when we bought it, it was. But there are other names that, I put an order today for a firm that I think reports next week. So, but yeah, you got to have a couple dozen names in biotech, and you shouldn't buy the index. Indices are horrible because the vast majority of biotech companies will go to zero. Look at ARCG. It's not doing anything. It's going flat. It sucks. ARCG's, Kathy Wood's genomics ETF. Right. And the performance is just lousy. I can pull up on the screen. In fact, we are going to use it as a hedge from time to time. It's that bad. It really is that bad. So yeah, biotech's exciting. I just want to share that on people's radar. And, I'm going to share my screen with you on, I'll share, this is Rocket, and this is Rocket Pharmaceuticals. Obviously, it's had an incredible run from mid-October. You had the lows around the October 26th. And I mean, it was up almost like 80% or something silly like that, right? So, and then you go to like ARCG. Let's take a look at this one. Yeah, I mean, where this thing's going nowhere. What's going on with this one? It did also have a rally off the lows, but it was quite muted from like $25 to $30. So it's not really keeping pace, and it hasn't really gone anywhere in the past couple of months. So yeah, I think there's a really great opportunity, and I think the entry points for biotech are quite interesting now. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good. They're not perfect because market's still overbought, but biotech has taken a breather in the last couple of weeks. So it's, I believe, a good idea to rotate from recent winners into that category. And that's what we're doing on the margin.
I think one of the interesting things that I enjoy talking with you about is the intersection of these various themes that have been really key to the way we think about the market at Lumina. So whether it's, the rise of AI and how that impacts semiconductors and the infrastructure layer, how does that dovetail with biotechnology, right? You just talked about there's a company out there, and there are many other examples of this where AI is driving innovation in biotechnology, just like it will drive innovation in many other sectors because of the incredible power of compute. Then also layer on the demographic kind of theme that we've talked about, and longevity, right? So folks are living longer, trying to stay healthier. Some will succeed, some will not succeed in staying healthier. There will be more diseases, a higher percentage of people dealing with diseases that may not have had to deal with them in the past because of other longevity drivers, right? And so as a result, the mix of these varying themes will create different opportunities in each one of these segments of industry classes, if you will, right? But there's not like a firewall between them in reality. It's just a designation of
it's a beautiful summary. Yeah, this is not the world where you lived in 10, 20 years ago, where you'd say, here are my sectors, like energy and industrials and technology on the one hand, and then growth and value and market cap on the other. And you figure out where you want to live within this, call it 3x3 matrix overlay of site. That's not it. All right, we live in a world of incredible transformation and change. And whether, like you said, demographics or biotech or AI, and you have to approach investing and living longer in a very different way than in the past. Like, how do you bet on aging demographics? That's a really interesting question. Now, one obvious answer would be like nursing homes. Okay, fine. But there are better answers. There are other answers. We talked about biotech that's related to that. We invested in a small cap that provides services for sleep apnea. I like those ideas. I like the non-obvious ideas that people are not looking at. People think aging demographics. They think diapers for the elderly, wheelchairs. Or I'm joking here a little bit, right? But
It's real.
I'll be in diapers before you know it. So hopefully there was a robot to assist me at that point. But if you have different ways to think about Asian demographics, what does that mean for leisure and hospitality and travel? Right, like cruise stocks have shot up because the elderly live longer to spend time with each other. Right, they know community and social circles matter to longevity and wellness and mental health, which is another interesting topic. So yeah, it takes. This is investing in the next 10 years is going to be nothing like we've seen in the decades leading up to where we are.
It's an interesting one. How pervasive all these things are. Like, as you started saying that, I just started thinking about like the real estate market as just a tiny example. Like, oh, well, people are going to probably live longer in their homes. And if they're living longer and not selling their homes, right, like the available supply of homes for sale will decrease. We're already in a housing shortage in most places in this country. It only gets worse when people are living longer, or you're getting, better home health care because of AI.
Right. I agree. Well, so we bought a home builder based in Florida and Texas. Why? Because people are moving to Florida for lower taxes. The demographics are great. There's a housing shortage, as you pointed out. They've got lots of cheap land. We bought St. Joe. We actually owned it before, but it was on sale, so we picked up some more. One of the few things that are still on a good offer in the market today. A couple utilities, a couple materials, and St. Joe is on sale. Fortunately, it went up after we bought it. But yeah, I agree. Housing, real estate, land values should go up as economies get more productive through AI. And I think it does touch on so many different areas. When you can find those themes hitting on one target, that's pretty cool. That's great.
Yeah, that is.
That's exciting. Man.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, that was a super interesting conversation.
Good stuff.
I think that covers everything we want to chat about today, maybe?
We'll pick it up next week. All right. Well, have a great weekend. Take care.
All right. You too, Ron. Yeah.
Bye-bye.